You're listening to the Care Collective podcast. I'm Michaela, and today's guest is Sadie, a young caregiver who stepped into that role at just 11 years old when her dad was diagnosed with dementia. Together, we talk about what it means to grow up fast, to process anger and grief, and to find your faith and identity again on the other side.
So thank you so much for coming on to talk today. Can you kind of just introduce yourself and what is your caregiver story and what did that look like for you when you became a caregiver?
My name's Sadie. I'm currently 18, at college to study crime scene investigation. Here to play ice hockey. I was a caregiver for my dad. It was 2019 when he was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, FTD for short. I was 11 at the time, and within 18 months he passed from it. So I was 13 when he passed, almost 14. So it was basically kind of just my childhood having to take care of somebody who's supposed to take care of me. And he progressed very quickly and horribly. And so it was reconciling with the fact that it's like no longer my dad. It's basically like a monster, but it's not him, it's the disease at work. So it was trying to navigate that while also having a social life and going to school and going to sports, and no other person ever understood because you don't really hear about 11-year-olds having to care for their 250-pound father. So a lot of it was trying to navigate childhood, still having a childhood, and also being an adult at the same time.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And I think um, one thing that I loved about our initial talk and our conversation is how much of your story in life now is really for your dad and is in his memory and wanting to keep him in mind and everything that you do. I know you showed me one of the pictures that you keep kind of nearby. That's one of your favorites. So to start, can you just kind of share a little bit about your dad, and what are some of your favorite memories with him, whether it's before, after the diagnosis, things that kind of stuck with you that, if you think of your dad, that's your favorite thing about him to remember.
Yeah. So my dad was just like, I think of him as like a bear. He is just like this big cuddly teddy bear, in my opinion. He had this big stomach that when you like hugged, it would like jiggle, like
Yeah.
whenever he laughed or talked or just breathed, and it was like very comforting. I always say that I'm more like a mommy's girl, but like there's always a special place for my dad in my heart. Because we had our own things we did. So like big into sports, like my play hockey, and then when I started playing softball, it was let's go out in the backyard and throw the ball around. Like he'd be at every game, every practice. He'd sit in the cold ice rink at practice and watch me. Like he was my mentor, and like we'd always have like our pregame traditions. We'd go get Dunkin', and then we'd like if I had a great game, he'd get me like something from the concession stand after, like a candy, or we just go on like these long drives after, and it was very nice. And then he'd always pick me up from school, and he'd always have food for me, whether it be like Nutter Butters or pretzels, big on pretzels and peanut butter. So it was always that where it's like he'd use me as an excuse to go to like get ice cream or get food because like he was a foodie at heart, and he just always knew how to make me laugh and make me feel loved, and he always like made me smile when I was feeling down. And we always just went on our own adventures. Like I could have a hard day at school and he'd go, let's go look for worms in the backyard and go fishing. Like big part of it is fishing. So that's my sign for him. Whenever I'm thinking about him, I somehow see something relating to fishing, whether it be somebody wearing a Bass Pro thing or like just a fishing rod somewhere, big on the bass fishing. So it's like he's always there with me in that aspect. Fishing's big. Like I want to get like a tattoo to honor him. Like I want to like incorporate fishing into it. Like it's just that was a very big part of our identity. And he just, even when he was sick, he never really lost his spark. Like I could still see at sometimes he'd see me doing something that we loved to do together, and there would be him like in the moment of clarity. And I'm like, my dad's still in there. It's like I had to differentiate between the disease and my father. But my dad was one of the nicest men I think you could have ever met. He welcomed everybody, treated every one of my friends like their second, like daughters or sons or anything. He always singing and dancing, having a fun time. He just was the life of the party, and that's when like the disease hit. It was just crazy to see the difference because it went from like, this high energy man to this just like robot kind of. So it was really like hard to like see that. It was a very fast deterioration, but I always try to keep his memory alive in the warmth he gave me. Like, if I described him in one word, it'd be like warm, just
Yeah.
that feeling.
That's certainly how he sounds from how you describe them, and he sounds like an
Yeah,
amazing
even
guy.
if you see pictures of
Yeah.
him, it's just you can just tell. He had that smile. I have his smile, so I'm like, "Oh, there it is."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's so
yeah.
fun. And I think knowing too that that's something that you always carry then, and that's something you associate with him, that's something that you can always remember him by whenever you look in the mirror, right? I think that's a really beautiful idea too. And can you elaborate a little bit more on, I love what you said about how it, you had to really focus on don't let the disease, don't let the thing this person is fighting take over their identity, take over your memory of them. So can you talk a little bit more about, that struggle and what were things that kind of helped you to keep him in mind, to remember him for who he is and not get so caught up when you're in the trenches of fighting this, kind of keeping that, I guess I would want to say like a team mentality, right? Like it's the two of you versus the problem and not you fighting that person, right? What was that experience like for you?
So I won't lie, I'm a very angry person during his diagnosis and taking care of him. I would take a lot of anger out on him, not meaning to take it out on him, but the disease. Because people wouldn't understand. They'd be like, "Why are you yelling at your dad? He has dementia." I'm like, "I'm not yelling at him. I'm yelling at the circumstance. I'm yelling at the fact that
Frustration.
there's this brain-eating disease right now in his body, and the only reprieve from it is going to be death." Like, I had to reconcile with that
Right.
fact. I had to the from diagnosis, I had to reconcile with the fact that I would lose my dad sooner rather than later. And I kinda just started to realize the more I focused on him being this person with dementia, the worse my image of him got, and every good memory I had of him turned into a bad memory. Like, I couldn't think, like, back to when we'd be out on the lake for hours fishing. I would think to when he would yell at me for trying to give him his pill. Like, it went from, like, good thoughts to bad thoughts very quickly, and I realized I needed to take a step back and just be like, "Wait a second. This is my dad. It's not his fault. He can't control what he's doing right now." And I would start doing, like, activities that just reminded me a lot of about him, like drumming. He loved music, so I'm a big drummer. I kinda weaned off of it a little bit, but I was a big drummer back in the day, and, he would, sit down and listen, and there was just this moment of clarity. So if there was anything I could do, it was give him those moments of clarity because it helped me,
Mm,
even more than it helped him. Even as he got worse, he could still kinda do some things with me in the beginning, so, like, I'd still throw a ball with him in the backyard, or I'd keep him
right.
entertained, or even cooking him food, like, it would just give him clarity, which would help me see it. Like, I swear I could see, like, a change in his eyes, like, from cloudy to, like, life again, and
Yeah.
I just was like, "Okay, I'm gonna start doing these activities, 1, to keep him entertained and not, like, running around the house, but also for me in, like, I guess you could say a selfish way, even though it's not really selfish because it's not like I'm doing anything wrong, but, sometimes people
Right.
the way people view it, it's very, yeah, hard sometimes. So, yeah, I just kinda did that, and I would write a lot, and when I wrote, I would, like, say, "This is what he did today," and then I would say, "This is what he would do when he wasn't sick," and I know that wasn't my dad. I even, like, wrote in my college essay, I was like, I had to look past the monster in my dad and see the man he was, like, he had to be in there because I knew
Mm,
he was. And even then, like, for him, he knew something was wrong a long time ago, but he never knew it was dementia, so that had to be scary to think, like, I'm getting worse, but I don't know what's wrong until it was too late when he was already, like, gone, couldn't really, like, yeah, it was just game over
right.
by
And
di
that's what I was gonna ask is if you got to see or understand some of what your dad's emotions were, or was it something that, I think parents often try to protect their kids from seeing certain things or seeing certain emotions. And I think they often have our best interest at heart. But I know for me, I always want to that connection comes from that vulnerability sometimes, right? And being able to be let in and to see the things that your parents are going through and to understand and connect on that. So did you get a chance to have some of those kind of conversations and see his perspective of like, guys, this is scary, or what kind of was that approach with seeing your parents kind of handle this?
So, when my dad, like, way before he was diagnosed, there was just when we look back, there's a lot of signs that he had dementia because in FTD, it takes 8 to 20 years from diagnosis to pass. So he got diagnosed really late, like end stages diagnosed.
Okay.
And there was just things he would do. His hearing started to go, his driving, he could drive anywhere without a map. Like, I'm
Mhm.
talking different state, nowhere to go.
Yeah.
His, like, sense of direction was amazing. Then he started getting lost easily. We were like, "What?" He would start to talk to the TV, think the things in the TV was real. Like, he would think, like,
Mhm.
if he was watching the news, he would think, like, there was people raiding our house and he had to, like, protect us. So there was some things that he was doing that we were like, "What?" But when we started confronting him and my mom was like, "What's going on? What's going on?" He would just get angry. He angered very easily because his behavioral, like, lobe in his brain was starting to shrink, so he had a very short temper. So it turned into, "Okay, now you're just being an a-hole, like, what's wrong?" So my parents were like, they were there was, like, fighting because we didn't know what was
Okay.
wrong. We didn't know he was sick, and he hated the doctor, so he didn't go. He didn't wanna go, but he definitely knew something was wrong, and then by the time he was diagnosed, he didn't even know who he was. Like, you couldn't have a normal
Yeah.
conversation with him, really. Like, he didn't know he was sick. He just lived, and we knew what was happening. I think he knew something was wrong, but once it hit, like, end stages, it was just like, "Okay, he's got dementia." You can try to have conversations with him, but his speech is slurring, and he barely can form coherent sentences, so I never really got the look into how he was truly feeling, but his actions would show. Sometimes he'd seem, like, confused on, like, why he would do something or, like, where he was, so it's, like, almost like he got control back over his body and was like, "Well, how did I end up here?" kind of. But he was very
Right.
short-tempered, his anger was very bad, so then that's when we were like, "Something's wrong because this cannot be the same." I was like, "This can't be my dad." I was like,
Yeah.
"There's no way."
Felt like it was somebody different. And I guess from what I remember of our last conversation, you can correct me on this as well too, but you guys kind of didn't know what to expect either because it's not like you'd encountered a family member that had something like this happen before to this extent, right? So it was kind of a shock in that regard too of not knowing what to expect for something like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of a lot that you have to research and learn and understand really, really fast in a lot of these cases because it's just thrown at you and you have no choice than to suddenly become an
Yeah.
expert in all of these things that 2 years ago you had no clue what it was, right? Which I
Yes.
think is one of the other kind of unique challenges that comes with taking care of people, right? Is that education aspect and being able to advocate for them to the doctor and push for these things, push them for things too, right? In your case, when you didn't want to, even when you're trying to get answers because that health and that decision affects more than just that person, it affects your whole family, it affects everything that's going on in your life, right? Which is where some of that tension can come from because you care about them, you don't know what's going on. It's a lot of stress for people, right? Going through that. And I appreciate your honesty too and being able to acknowledge and say, yeah, I was pretty angry. That was hard to deal with. That was, you know, I think
Yep, I'm
a
still
big thing for
reconciling with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is understandable. And I think being able to accept and even name your emotions is something that a lot of people struggle with. And that's kind of the beginning stages of being able to even work on it, is being able to recognize that that's what that feeling was. You know, sometimes you're stuck with feelings and you can't even navigate them
Yeah.
and you don't even know what they are, but it's once you learn the root cause of it. I know my therapist would like to tell me often that anger, and maybe you've had this explanation before as well too, but that anger is often rooted that there's something deeper going on. It's not really anger. Anger is just kind of the surface level name we give the emotion, but there's usually something deeper that's driving that, whether it's fear, whether it's discomfort at the situation, right? But there's
Mhm.
always
Yeah,
something.
mine was definitely fear. I didn't know, like, when I was gonna wake up and know that my dad was dead or what the next day had entailed for me or how he was gonna act. I mean, like, he got aggressive with me, like, I won't lie, and I'd be scared to even interact with him at times. So it was like when he got aggressive, I'd get aggressive back, and it wasn't good. It wasn't healthy for either of us because then he'd just get riled up and then I'd just get upset. Yeah, so it definitely fear was a big,
Yeah.
deep, like, rooted thing that I didn't really. I was like, "Nope, I gotta be the strong, independent person. I have to help my family. I have to do well in school. I have to do well in sports. I have to keep my friends. Like, I don't have time
Right.
for these weak emotions. I need to be strong. I need to be quote unquote like better than everybody. And I need to have this anger to fuel me to like get me through the day. Whereas I'm literally just this scared 11-year-old girl who wants her dad to be okay.
Right. Yeah. No, that's really hard to work through and understand, especially at such a young age. And I know you mentioned basically from the beginning, I believe you said that your mom already had you going to therapy, right? And getting help in that way. Can you talk about, if you're comfortable sharing about that experience, and was that easy for you to go? Was that something you were resistant to at first? Kind of what was your reaction and into that?
I just started liking therapy like now. I hate therapy. I hate talking about my feelings. I hate letting them out because, again, I was expected to be this strong person. I was expected to be the strong person through 18 months of taking care of my dad. And then I was expected to be the strong person when I went right back to school and after he passed. Life carried on and I was stuck in the mud. I wasn't moving while life was.
Mm.
So I took on this tough girl persona and I was like, I don't need to talk about my feelings. They're not important. They haven't, not that they haven't been important, but I was focused on taking care of my father that I wasn't really highlighting them. But obviously, like me and my family would talk. Like I talked to them and stuff. Like it wasn't like my emotions were pushed, but we were all stressed. So there was times when we all weren't saying stuff to each other because we got to chase the half naked man down the road right now. We don't have time to sit down and have a group therapy session. So
Right.
I was
Right.
big adverse to therapy. And my first therapist, she was good. I mean, she helped me through the diagnosis, but then once the feelings started getting a little heavier, it was like, okay, I'm not really vibing with you anymore. So I took a good break from therapy, but I found a current therapist who I really love and she really changed my view on therapy. And I love like
Mhm.
going and talking and being able to grow with my grief and just grow as a person and grow through my other challenges. So yeah, I was definitely aversive to therapy. I hated it. I'm still sometimes hate it, but I'm seeing the change in myself and I'm seeing like the tiny flame turn bigger in my body, like the desire to do better, grow better,
Mhm.
continue living this life and like continuing the memory of my father. It's like growing in me. So it's definitely as hard as it can be sometimes and as horrible as I hate sharing my emotions, it's definitely helping and I can see the change and I can see the light entering my life again, which is amazing cuz I mean, it's going to be 5 years in January and I feel like I've kind of been just stuck in this like limbo for like that long. But I'm really therapy's definitely like if I wasn't in therapy, I'd probably still be stuck but trying to figure it out, but with the little push and the little help to like give me the tactics to work on myself, it helps a lot.
Yeah, no, and again, I appreciate your honesty with that because I think a lot of people struggle with going to therapy, and I've talked to plenty of people that are like, "No, I can't do this. This isn't for me." And what I hear in your experience and what I think is important to talk about or highlight even is how you need different things at different times of your life. And so there's gonna be a day where, yeah, like you love this therapist, you love talking to them, maybe they're a really good fit. There's gonna be another time period where it's like, yeah, this doesn't make sense for me right now. I need to work through some things on my own before I take it to another person, right? And so I think just acknowledging and knowing that what works today, especially when you're on that healing process, we've talked about grief, we've talked about understanding these emotions. It's not going to be a linear path and it's still all going
Not
forward, but sometimes you might feel like you're taking some steps back, right?
Yep, it's a roller coaster. I say it's like a roller coaster. You're going to have your high days, you're going to have your low days, and sometimes you're just cruising.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's just kind of the ride of life.
Yeah.
And can we talk a little bit about the grief aspect and specifically watching, what I hear often with people that are dealing with memory challenges or whether it's Alzheimer's, dementia, different challenges that they're facing. A lot of it for the caregivers is that you're grieving somebody before they're even gone, right? That they're still physically there, but mentally they're not anymore. And you're kind of faced with this sudden loss that you didn't anticipate, but they're still there. So you still have to show up for them, right? You can't just cut them off entirely and pretend they're not there. But dealing with that, what was that feeling for you and how did you experience that?
Yeah, I mean, luckily with my dad, his memory stayed intact for most of it. A lot of it was his speech, critical thinking, behavior. That's
Right.
really what went, his motor functions.
Right.
But towards the end, his memory would get bad, or like my sister was in college for most of his
Mhm.
diagnosis. So when she would come back, he'd be like, "Who are you?" Whereas when he was with me, my brother, and my mom, he'd know us
Didn't
because
recognize you.
we're with him all the time. But he had the times where his memory would go, or he'd think my mom was cheating on him with like Donald Trump because he's watching the news, or he'd be
Right.
like to my brother, like, think that he's a stranger. Like, there was times he would have those issues, and it was hard. It was hard because I'm like, I think back to the dad who would take me fishing, take me to ice cream, give me a Nutter Butter when I was upset, or just listen to me talk about my day. And it's like, he's there, but he's not. And I wasn't more grieving the fact that I lost, because he was still there physically, so for me, it's like, "Okay, my dad's still there even though he's not."
Mhm.
I was more grieving the fact that he was going to die. I would think about
Right.
that on the daily. I was like, "It's not like he has a chance to live. There's no way. Unless a miraculous miracle happened, that's it."
Right.
And so I would
Somebody
kinda live
invented
every day
medication
being,
overnight or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. There was nothing. So I would live a day in, day out, kind of like, "When's my dad gonna die? When's my dad gonna die? When's my dad
Right.
gonna die?" And I always said he wasn't gonna make it to my 8th grade graduation, which I was right. And I'd always, like, pray. I'd, like, want a miracle and say, "Please, please take his pain away, take his pain away." And when he died, I was like, "That's not taking his pain away." But as I realized it was. He was taken from this world to take his pain away. He wasn't given the miraculous healing because it wasn't going to happen, but death was an escape for him, and as much as that killed me, killed my family, I also think and sit and I'm like, "He had no quality of life anymore. Why would I want my dad to stay here if he wasn't him?" But in the moment, I'm selfish. I'm 13. Why the heck is my dad dying? Why was my dad chosen to get dementia? Like, he didn't have the gene, so why the heck am I going through this right now when there's people in the world who deserve it? I took the
Mm.
cynical approach to things,
Mm.
because I was young. I didn't know. So a
Yeah.
lot of my
No,
grief
for
is cynical and anger in the beginning when he passed,
mm.
but now it's kinda like the bittersweet grief where it's like, I'll see something and it'll make me upset. Like, I was at the beach. I go to annual beach trip to Rhode Island every year with my family, and I saw a little kid and a dad boogie boarding, and my dad would come up maybe once or twice,
Mhm.
like, during the week because he worked, and he would boogie board with me on the beach, and I just tears started coming down out of
Yeah.
my eyes 'cause, like, well, I'm not mad that they're doing it. I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, my dad used to do that with me when I was that kid's
Yeah.
age." So, there's that, and then there's still the angry grief for the, like, ones where I'm just absolutely mental breakdown because it's like, and now it's
Mm.
college. Like, I'm in college, so I'm going through all these life milestones, and he's not
Right.
physically here. Like, he's here. I know he's here in my heart, but he's not physically here, and that's, like, messy. Like, when I all my high school stuff came up, like graduation, all of that, I was like, "We need to bring a picture of him. He's gotta be, like, on my cap. He's got" like, do as much stuff as I can, especially even with hockey. Like, I have his name written under my stick. I have him on the back of my helmet. I bring a picture with me, like, to still have that kind of physical attribution to him, even though I know he's still here. So, like, I say my grief is, like, it's, like, this big and your jar is, like, this small in the beginning, and then as you grow, your jar gets bigger, but the grief stays the same, so you're learning to grow with your grief, but it's never gonna get better, but you're gonna have those days where it hurts, and it's gonna hurt maybe not a lot, it's just gonna be, like, you saw something, you cry a little bit, you think of your whoever you lost, and you maybe, like, chuckle to yourself because you remember a fun memory, and then there's gonna be days where it's like, "Oh my gosh, I miss him or I miss her. Like, why are they die? Why the world? Like, it's unfair." And you're going to just sob in your bed all day and just better off because you just can't function right now without them. And you're going to go through those ups and downs, but it's learning to grow with it that makes it a little easier.
Mm. Yeah. No, I think I love that analogy that you brought up last time we were talking, just 'cause I think that's a very good way to visualize it. And I think provides a lot of grace for yourself too when you're like beating yourself up and you're like, why do I feel feel this way about it, right? But it's just as you go through life and you've gotten dealt some cards very young that most people do not even have to think about until they're, much older, right? So being able to have that kind of capacity and maturity to handle that,
Yeah.
that's
I
something a
always
lot of
say I
people
matured
don't
a
have.
little too young,
Yeah, for better or
but
for worse,
mhm.
that's that's how it's gone. I know we didn't talk about this before, so if you would be open to sharing about this, I'd be curious to hear more about what your kind of faith looked like. Because you mentioned praying, you mentioned that kind of being, something. What I'm hearing from you, being a religious person myself too, kind of that cynical side of, being
Yeah.
stuck there. What role did faith play in either helping you, heal, get further, or like feeling like you were kind of stuck and questioning things at times too?
Yeah. So I was born raised Catholic. I still fully believe I am a practicing Catholic, and I during his diagnosis and his death, I strayed horribly away from my faith. I like completely like separated myself because all I could think about was why did God do this to me and my family? Because it was sporadic. So it's just like a claw machine. Oh, let's pick, Stephen Plotkin to get dementia. So I struggled a lot. And my mom, on the other hand, grew really strong in her faith. So it was like that constant battle where it's like, I know this isn't him doing this to me and it's my cross to bear in the world, but also like, no. So I also beat myself up a lot for that though, because I'd like pray and then I'm like, well, now I'm praying for something to happen, like a miraculous healing, but I'm not doing anything to show God that I still care about him.
Mm,
So there was that constant back and forth battle, and I'd like a lot of times because was in a Catholic, middle school, grammar school, high school. So I would like a lot of like reflection, like writing I had to do in classes, and I would do it a lot about my dad, and I would sit back and I would realize, no, I need to grow stronger in my faith, and like when I would go to confession, I would like, be like, this is how I'm feeling. And I would get really great advice from like the priests that I would see. And kind of still like, I would say I grew a little closer towards the end and then towards death, but I was still like really like, just,
yeah.
I would go to church and I wouldn't feel anything anymore. I'd be like, I don't feel a connection because I'm not getting anything. And then I went like to one mass and the priest had a homily about grief. And I sat there and I just listened and I started crying. And I was
Mm,
like, something in that homily just woke me up. And I said, what am I doing? And I
yeah.
just sat there and I prayed for a good like 10 minutes. And I was just, something in my heart opened up. And I was like, there was always one factor that was there for me during his death and diagnosis, and it was God. And I
Mm,
didn't utilize it because I was so angry. And then I sat back and I realized I prayed for my dad to heal, and God took him away to heal him. And
mm,
that's when I was just like, yeah, okay. And I grew way stronger in my faith. I still, obviously, we all make mistakes. Nobody's going to be perfect, but I definitely feel that connection. I try to live more in the light of Christ.
mm.
But it was definitely a very rocky road, still is sometimes. But yeah, that homily was just like a really eye opening. It was just like I can't even remember the context, but it was something about grief. And I literally went up to the priest after mass and I was like, I sobbed in front of him. I was like, you don't understand how much I needed that right now.
Mm.
So yeah, it was a rocky road, but we're getting there. And try to stay as strong in my faith as I can because it's always been with me since the beginning. And it's always like that peaceful part of me that I could go to when I'm angry, sad, upset, anything.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful, and I think that there is a lot of power and healing and solace that can come from, your faith and from these places of community too, because I'm sure, I really think a lot of the power in church often is being able to be gathered with other people that, I'm sure you were probably feeling that there was a lot of other people that needed to hear that too, right? And that kind of sense of unity and connection to your faith and being able to know that there is a reason for things and trusting that is kind of the takes a lot of faith. It does take a lot of trial, and again, that's
Mhm.
kind of how we learn and how we grow, right? But
Yeah.
I think that is something that a lot of people can lean on to be able to find relief whenever they're in kind of those dark moments. That's something I definitely believe in as well with my faith. So now, kind of wanted to talk a lot about something you have already talked a lot about yourself, is being a young caregiver. I did look up, and they said that in particular they've estimated that, well, I don't even know if they can put a number to it, but that there's millions of young Americans between the ages of 15 and 22 that are providing essential care to adults. Whether that's family, whether that's paid, I believe all of that is kind of included. And you were even younger than that when you started, right? Younger than 15. So I'm sure there's even more that are having to help, whether it's grandparents, aunts, uncles, who knows what kind of different family situations people have. And I know something you kind of described last time was that sense of isolation from your peers and feeling like not a lot of people can understand this. This isn't that common, despite there being millions in the US, right, that are experiencing this. So what was kind of your experience being younger and having to be a caregiver from such a young age and seeing that you were kind of different from everyone else around you?
Yeah, it was tough. I was confused, scared, angry are the three emotions I think I went through in a cycle. Confused on what's going on, how do I take care of my father? What do I need to do? How can I help my family? Scared because my dad's twice the size of me. He can easily injure me, especially when he gets angry. I mean, there were times when I'd get like pushed into a wall or punched or kicked, and again, and to the outside people, oh my gosh, your dad's a monster. To me, no, he had dementia and he didn't know what he was doing. And other times, like scared of the unknown, what's gonna happen? When is he gonna die? What does this mean for me? And then angry. I mean, I've talked about it. Anger was just big. It was big. Angry at the world, angry at God, angry at my father, sometimes even angry at my family. Because, like, we were all going through our different ways of processing and grieving and coping, and we weren't the same in that way. And, like, the way I cope's very different from the way my brother, my sister, and my mom cope, and it would be clashing heads because it's like, well, why are you trying to keep him alive, like not keep him alive in the sense of like it's okay to keep his memory, but you're still acting like he's alive, like he's always in conversation with you, where it's like he's dead, we need to let him go.
Mm.
um so a lot of that came with being young, and then the isolation was huge. I mean, my peers, when he passed, no offense to them, but they'd go, he's in a better place now, it's going to be okay, like, I understand my grandma died. I'm like, no, hate to your grandma, God rest her soul, but
Well,
it's
different.
not the same. And it's also not like my dad just spontaneously died in like a car crash or something. I knew he was going to die from the day he was diagnosed, and I had to live with a deteriorating father for 18 months
Mhm.
until he died. That in I'm not like that in that my opinion that's worse, because it's just like you're going to know, like you know and you don't know at the same time. Again, not downplaying anyway how anybody dies. It's just this is how I view it and how I viewed it when I was younger.
Right.
It was just hard, and then I'd have to do hard tasks. I mean, trying to give, like, him his pills had to be, like, the hardest thing ever, especially when he started getting combative. Like, he'd spit them out, he'd hide them under his tongue. Like, I used to have to, like, check his mouth, like he was, like, a patient in a hospital. I'm like, "I'm 11, this is my father, like, what the heck?" Then there were times I'd have to chase him down the street, he'd be half naked, I'd have to drag him back. I was late to online class because I had to deal with this during COVID too. Like,
Right.
it's just, and, like, people said they understood, but at the same time, they didn't. Like, one time he hid my, like, school folder with all of my homework under the couch, and we couldn't find it, and we eventually found it, but I was late to school. My teacher was like, "Oh, why are you late?" And I was like, "Oh, my dad hid the folder on the couch," and he, like, laughed because they don't know how to interact with
Right. Like,
that,
how do you
even though they're
correct that on that? Your
adults.
average student would not
Yeah, like,
say that. Yeah.
yeah, you're like an adult, and this is your 11, 12-year-old student trying to explain that their dementia-ridden father, like, hid their homework on them. Like,
Right.
just insane. And there was other times, like, my principal back in my, like, elementary school was like, none of us we were all, like, in 8th grade or 7th grade or something, and she was like, none of the older kids want to go to father-daughter dance, and they were like, oh, why does nobody want to go? And I was like, oh, well, for obvious reasons. And she was like, oh, is it because you don't like to dance? And I just was like, no, because my dad's got dementia and he's dying. Like, what? No, I understand you're trying to make me feel better, but that's not making me feel better. That's making me feel worse. Like, so people
Right,
would say
right.
things because they didn't know how to interact with it. Like the idea that somebody so much younger than you is losing their father at a young age, that they're not understanding how to interact with it. And then when he died, I would constantly joke about it. I still am getting better about that. I do use joking to cope, which makes it very uncomfortable. And I'm started to understand that as I got older, which is I now understand why like my peers like took a step back because I kind of did like make it awkward sometimes. But I mean, like, it's just like you expect people to kind of just drop everything and know how to interact with you, but they don't. And I
Mhm.
realize that now, but at the time I'm like, well, come on, guys, like, comfort me. My dad just died. And I felt like I got like a lot of pity points kind of when he died. Like, I got
Mm,
like an award for like resilience and stuff, which I
mm.
mean, come on. I kind of did deserve it. That sounds
You're
very
like, "I earned
egotistical.
it." I mean,
And
I
it
would
was like,
argue that you would
yeah,
definitely earn
in the
it
description, it
going
was
through
like,
something like this. Yeah.
yeah, it was like in the description, it was like, Sadie lost her dad this year and she handled it with grace and stuff. And I'm like, handled it? I'm still handling it. Like, that made me mad. It's like they saw me as this bright, young girl who went through this, who's now still getting good grades in school, still doing well in sports, maintaining a social life. And they thought I just got over. I
Mm,
didn't just get over it. I'm still living with it. I'm still not over it. I'll never be over it. I'll just learn to grow with it. And I think that's what really, like, as a young kid was like, well, I'm not
mm,
over it. Like, I get over other things. Yeah, okay, scrape on my knee, I put a band-aid on it, I'm over it. Now let's go play again. Losing your father at 13, I'm not over it. Getting the diagnosis of your father at 11. I mean, they diagnosed him wrong too. They thought he had Alzheimer's. And we were like, that's not right. Like, it was a battle to get the right diagnosis, a battle with the doctors. Like, to see that on my mom, the strain on her. I commend my mom. Like, if anybody in my life I commend, it has to be my mother. Like, I say she's my rock. It's insane. Like, I couldn't even imagine. Even as like a young kid, I'm like, my mom's way older than me and she's still going through the same stuff I am. Like, I can only imagine. Like, age really, it doesn't matter, but like in the young side of things, it was just very weird and isolating and like just I matured way too fast. I got to enjoy childhood. I had a great childhood, loving home, loving family. Like, I'm not dishing that, but also at the same time, it's like I don't remember a lot of it because most of it was taken up by this, and then expecting to kind of be better and moving on while trying to have fun, but still having that lurking like darkness in the
mm,
back of my head.
mhm.
Like, I just lost my dad like 2 months ago, and now I'm going to like Six Flags. Like, what? So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just a lot to reconcile with.
for sure. And I know something I asked you last time that I thought was very enlightening or interesting. Don't know the right word to say in this case to your point about how people talk about these things. But what are things that you wish people would have talked to you about at that time or like questions even now that you wish people like as you interact with people and you mentioned that your dad has passed away, like what kind of reactions do you wish that you would get more often from people? Like people asking you memories about him or, what kind of conversations or things do you wish that you could have from your peers, from people you interact with on a daily basis?
At the time, I kind of just wish they all kind of bombarded me. Like, when I
Mm,
told everybody my dad died, I think I got the most texts I've ever gotten in my life. And I kind of
yeah.
felt like they just did it out of obligation, which I'm not
Mm,
upset about because I do the same thing. Like, I'm not no saint. Like, somebody tells me that somebody just died, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for your loss. If you ever need anything, I'm here. But it's the if you ever need anything, I'm here that I actually follow up on that a lot of people didn't follow up on with me. I
mm,
wasn't expecting him to drop everything, bow down to me, and be like, "Oh my gosh, your dad just died. Like, let me give you everything." Like, no. But when I needed somebody, I expected them to carry through on their promises. There were some that did, and there were some that didn't, and then there were some that just did it wrong. I mean, in the sense. people would just, they'd give you the empty words that, you know, you got to just say to somebody because you don't know what to say. And I
Right.
would say the same things to people and not understand how it felt until it happened to me. And then I'm getting he's in a better place. It's going to be okay. He's no longer hurting. And I'm like, wow. So when I say this to people, this is must be like what they feel like, because it's nothing.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, please shut up. Like, just stop talking. So I kind of just
Like
wish
at that point,
people,
you'd rather them say
yeah.
nothing than saying that.
Yeah,
I
just
guess
say
what you're saying.
nothing,
Yeah.
please. I'd rather have silence. Like, and then, yeah, I think just the following up on, like, the "I'm here for you if you need anything" wasn't followed up on, which stung a lot.
Yeah.
Or just, like, I would want somebody to just let me sit down and tell them about my dad, tell them about what happened without the, "Oh my gosh, she's talking about her dad," type
Yeah.
stuff. I don't even know, like, I would talk about it so much because I needed to talk about it, that one time a kid literally turned around to me and said, "Nobody cares that your dad's dead." I was like, "Okay." Like, because they don't know at the time, I'm like, "How could you ever say that?" And there's still a part of me that's like, "How could you say that to me?" But at the same time, it's like, you're also 13 and your classmates talking about her dead dad all the time. I can understand how depressing that is. I don't blame you for saying that. You could have said it in a
Mhm.
nicer way, but also, like, nobody wants to listen to her, so maybe that's why she keeps talking about it. So maybe pull her aside and say, "Hey, look, Sadie, you talk about it a little too much. You kind of make things awkward. Why don't, when you want to talk about it, you pull me aside and we can have a great conversation?" But again, 13-year-olds really don't know how to process that, and sometimes adults don't even either. So you know what? I can't even blame
Right.
people. And I'm not saying I was a perfect angel. I'm not. I'll take accountability where it needs to be taken. I did make things awkward. I would joke about it. I'd talk about it at bad times. And you know
Right.
what? At the same time, I was 13. I was 12. I was 11. What do you expect me to do? Not talk about it?
Right.
Just wallow in my sadness? Like, that's even worse.
Well, and I think to me, hearing your experience and how things went, if I were, and I say this with zero judgment toward these people, because I also acknowledge and understand people do the best with what they can in the moment, so not trying to project that onto anybody, but I would think if you're a teacher and you have a child that is still talking about this, that maybe it is becoming a classroom disruption if you're gonna joke about it, and people are like, what is going, I can't even
Yeah,
pay
my teacher,
attention to how
when I look
thinking about
back, my
this.
teachers did not handle it well either.
Yeah, like I would think if you had a child doing that, that would make me want to go to them and say, "Hey, do you need someone to talk to? There's something else going on." Like what, like there's usually something to explain why a child is going to still draw attention to it, still feel the need to
Yeah.
kind of discuss it, right? Again, zero judgment on them because I know that teaching is a hard job and they've got a million
Oh, yeah.
children with
I
a
mean, my
million
high
different
school
things
teachers
going on,
were
right?
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
my high
Well,
school
that's
teachers
good.
were good. Obviously, he was passed by the time I went to high school, but I would still tell him because I'd be like, "Look, if
Right.
I'm upset or if I'm having a bad day, it's probably because
Still
I did just
moving,
lose
yeah.
my dad and
Yeah.
I'm still grieving." And they were very good about it. Like, if they noticed I was off, they'd pull me aside. I mean, even my, like, middle school teachers, there was a couple that were good, but it's almost like they kind of, like, avoided it because they didn't know how to interact with it. And I think that speaks on something about their
The
education
teacher
in
understand.
college. Like,
Yeah.
they needed to be taught how to try and deal with things because you don't know what you're gonna get. And I work as, like, a camp counselor, and there's kids in, like, kindergarten and first grade who lost parents, and I'm over here like, my gosh, you're like 6, 7, 8, like 5, you're losing your parent. I'm like, I thought 11 was bad because I basically say, like, I lost my dad at 11 because he wasn't my dad anymore at that point. I was like, I think 11's bad. And I'm like, there's probably people who don't even know how to, like, and then I'm thinking, like, right now they don't understand the severity of it. But as they start to get older and they're like, where's my mom? Where's my dad? For certain life events, they're going to need the help. And I just feel like there's not a lot of help. There really isn't. And I think that speaks to, like, how society doesn't, they kind of just expect you to be okay and, like,
Shove it
move
in a
on with
box
your life.
and forget,
Yeah. But
because
you
it makes
can't.
everyone else uncomfortable to deal with it, and I think
And you
that's
can't make other people uncomfortable. That is literally how society is. You can't make other people uncomfortable with your opinion, like, anything, stories, anything, because everybody has to be comfortable and nobody can feel anything else but happiness. I'm like, that's just not how the world works. Okay? That's just not.
Right, right. We all have to learn to deal with the uncomfortable, and I think that's the definition of being a caregiver too, right? Is you're just in uncomfortable
Yeah.
situations all day. So then when you're exposed to it and then you're around other people that aren't, you're like, why don't you understand? Like, how can you even be saying these things to me? They're so insensitive, right?
Mhm.
But I guess kind of flipping, I know we've talked a lot about how other people, their experiences, things you wish that people would support you with. It kind of in closing, what kind of advice or words of wisdom do you have to give to other young caregivers and people that are feel like they're in the trenches at the moment and kind of going through it? What is something that you wish somebody would have said to you or could say to you now, even?
Feel your feelings. Feel them. I suppressed so many things out of fear, out of a desire to seem tough for the person I was caring and for my family. But don't. Feel your feelings. Let the anger out. Let the sadness out. Let the hatred out. Let everything out, because when you keep it in, it's worse. You go down the darkest rabbit hole you can go down in your own mind and you lose yourself in it. And even if it's, I yelled at my dad all the time, and there's a part of me that feels so much guilt for that, but also a part of me that's like, no, because I'm human too and I was feeling too. Let it out. Feel the guilt after, but you have to let your emotions out. You cannot be this robot that's just caregiving day in and day out. You need to be human. We all bleed the same. We all end up in the same ground that we came from. You need to feel and live, and you need to separate like your caregiving from you in a sense of, yep, you're a caregiver, you're a badass, you're a warrior, you're doing this, but also you can have those quiet cries in your room and feel. You don't have to be this strong person that everybody makes you out to be. And find those people who let you feel and keep them close, because they will be the ones that will support you no matter where you are in the caregiving. If you lose who you're caregiving or if they heal, they will still, that group of people will be there. And it's like you found your second home. And I think I was never really told that until later. And even when I was told that, I never did it. And now it's me trying to rebuild what I destroyed by keeping everything in.
Yeah.
And I'm 18 years old. And it's like, it could happen to anybody. It can, especially young kids. Your brain's still in development. You need to just let it be, let it feel, let it do the things it needs to do. Or you just become a mindless zombie, and then you're focused on just rebuilding your life basically after whatever happens to you happens. So I just say literally just feel your feelings. Don't feel the guilt of being alive, being human.
Yeah, no, I think I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that that is so important to kind of make your own space or your own world too. Because I think a lot of what you're describing is that sense of when your life is so focused on putting someone else first, right?
Yes.
That
Put yourself
tendency,
first.
yeah. I think
That's
that's
what
such a
my
big part.
therapist told me to do. I put everybody else first. And she's like,
Mhm.
no, you need to put yourself first. This is why you're feeling like this. You need
Right,
to put yourself
right.
first.
And what I kind of have come to talk about with a lot of people is that when you are putting yourself first, you are still putting the other person first, because that allows you to show up as a better daughter, as a better caregiver, as a better friend,
Yes.
right? Because you can only be there for other people when you're your best self. And you can't do that if you're shoving everything down inside, right? So one final question for you as well. Beyond this advice, which I think is great, to put your feelings first, what other actions or self-care, different things that have kind of helped you to recenter and ground yourself and, keep your identity separate from that of being a caregiver?
I kind of focused on like the things I enjoyed before like my world came crashing down. Like hockey. If I could get on the ice, I was getting on the ice. If I could go out to the driveway, I was shooting a puck. I also journal a lot. getting your emotions out no matter what they are, even if somebody else read it and they're like be like think you're like need to go to a mental institution, like no, just get it out on a piece of paper. It's so much better because it almost feels like you're emptying your brain out, and now it's not up there, it's like on the word, it's like on a piece of paper on with words. Music big too, like just literally taking a second, you just sit at your desk, you can stare at a wall and just listen to your favorite playlist. Don't listen to anything sad because it'll just get you in a worse mood. Listen to your favorite upbeat playlist, anything. I would listen to like the songs that I grew up with my dad, like all the 60s to 90s rock music, like Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. I'm like, yeah, like let's go. Like even if I just cried 20 minutes before because I'm watching my dad.
Have a little dance party or something, right?
You just have to let go and kind of just let yourself enjoy it, even though you are going through something hard. Do what you love. Don't let it go. I started to let things I loved go, and then I was like stuck in this hole of just being in my room and then taking care of my father. And then I'm like, no, I need to go do stuff. Even if like who you're caregiving, if you can, like include them in the activities, like do that. That can help a lot too. I mean, it helped me. And then just like, if you need a day, go take a day, take it. I mean, it might not be easy. You might have to go through some loopholes to find a way to take the day, but take the day. Just do it. You got to put yourself first because, again, like you said, when you put yourself first, you are a better person for who you're caregiving and the people around you. When I didn't put myself first, I was a bitch. Like, I was like so cynical, so mean. I was like, who wants to be around me right now? Because I thought by not putting myself first, I was going to be better. I was going to be this strong robot to like do this job. But in reality, I was just a little girl who didn't know what was going on and just needed to let herself still live, but also don't like just go through the motions. Like I was just like I was expected to keep a social life, school, sports, family, everything. Don't let yourself just go through the motions and do those things and live. You need to actually feel with it. So like add some things to it that make you feel. Do things that you know you love to do that will give you that spark that's still in you. Like you might think your flame's gone out, but there's always a little flame and you need to like just let it grow. And I always say to find one positive in the day. Like I had a pretty boring day today, but my one positive is I got to sleep until 12. You know what? I love sleeping. So that's my one positive. You always need to find one positive in the day and focus on that, because when you don't focus on the positive, all you have is your negative thoughts and it just weighs you down like crazy.
Right. Yeah. I would add to that too. I know for a lot of people, it's that kind of in a similar vein, you have to focus on the good memories you have with that person. You have to focus on the good in the situation, right? And choose your battles of things that you're going to focus on when it comes to these high stress caregiving situations, is what I would say as well too. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I think you shared some very pertinent advice and things that are just really raw and honest and true. And I think you definitely take the award for being the youngest person to come on and share their story so far. And so I really appreciate you just sharing all of it and really honoring your dad's memory and keeping that alive. And I think making him very proud of everything that you're doing now, right? Like still continuing that.
That means a lot to hear. Thank you.
Well, is there anything else that you want to say? Any other last final thoughts or?
Just, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Just take it one day at a time, one positive at a time, and just feel. That's all I got to say.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate all of it so much again. I think this will be very helpful